everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Katie, and today we're going to be talking about the books that I read in August. So in August, I read a total of, I believe, 22 books, and that does not include I think one Archie comic book and a couple of Garfield comic books. So yes, 22 books. There are a couple middle grades and graphic novels on my list, but other than that, complete full-length novels. So yeah, a little surprising. I did not honestly think I was going to read that much, but you never know, right? So 4-star ratings, I have 1 star. We're going through all the stars today. I have 1 2-star. I have 5 3-stars. 5 4-stars, and 4 5-stars. So that was hard to figure out. I should have written it down after my list, but that's what I have going. I have, I believe, two manga books to talk about, 1 graphic novel, about 5 middle grade books, and the rest are YA or adult. So let's go ahead and get started. Most of these are Christian fiction other than the manga and the graphic novels. So I read a lot of Christian fiction this month. So we'll start with the 1-star rating and we'll go all the way to my favorite of the month. So my 1-star rating was Evil Under the Sun by Agatha Christie. And yes, Agatha Christie and I have a love-hate relationship apparently, because I've given some 4 stars and now a 1 star. So she's all over the board with star ratings. I'm not exactly sure if she's a writer for me. There are definitely some that I enjoy, but this one definitely missed the mark for me. I just didn't enjoy it. It was about this girl who basically she was kind of like a femme fatale. All the guys were kind of fawning over her at the beach on this island, even married men, so I didn't really like that part. It was very slow, and I think I've actually seen this book in a Hercule Poirot episode, I believe, because this seemed really familiar. As I was reading the ending, I'm like, this sounds familiar, so I think I did, but I think I liked the show more than this book, because yeah, it was just really slow to me. I just really wasn't enjoying this one, so not one of my favorites, that's for sure, but I will try other ones, I'm sure, just to find ones hopefully that I will enjoy. This one just wasn't for me, unfortunately. All right, so the next one, our 2-star read, which is, I have a physical copy, and that was, gotta hold it right, the Manga Alice in Wonderland Special Collector's Edition. This is the kind of Tim Burton edition. I just really didn't enjoy the art style. The art style wasn't for me, unfortunately. It was very Tim Burton-ish. But I don't know, it definitely wasn't for me, and I don't know, it just seemed more, like, even though the movies have some violence in them, this one just seemed like it had more violence, just to me, because it was in picture form and stuff, and I wasn't really paying attention, but yeah. So this was 2 stars for me. I really wasn't enjoying it. I liked the movies a lot better. I just didn't like the book. All right, on to 3 stars. So the first one that I read was a comic book? Graphic novel. A graphic novel called Be Prepared by Very Brasgal. And this is kind of based off of her childhood camp years. And it was pretty good. It's about kind of like a Russian camp, because she is Russian. And her parents say, oh, if you want to go to camp, we'll send you to a Russian camp, so you know the culture a little bit more. So she goes there, and just kind of the way, because I never went to camp, so I went 1 year, and I didn't particularly enjoy it, so I should have gotten a lot out of this, but I don't know, it wasn't for me, because I never had a huge camp experience as a kid, so I think I kind of missed out on that, and I don't know, it was okay, but I think I could have gotten more out of it if I did go to camp as a kid a lot more. So yeah. So the next one that I read was Fairest by Marissa Mayer. This is number 3.5 in the Lunar Chronicles. I only gave it 3 stars. It was okay. We get to learn a little bit more about Queen Lavanna and how she came into power and stuff, and it was good, but there was, I think, one or two risque parts in it. It doesn't get into huge detail, but compared to the rest of the series, yes, it's a little strong for the rest of the series. So I honestly, probably, if I chose now, I would have just read the initial 4 books rather than that extra novella in between. So I didn't feel like it added too much to the story, so I think you can get away without reading it. So yeah, it was only 3 stars for me. It was okay, but not one of my favorites in the series. All right, so the next 3 star that I have to find it on my shelves, was A Woman in a Shadow by Carrie Stewart Parks. And I buddy read this with Mrs. Thomas. I will link her channel down below. But we buddy read this together, and I think we both will probably give it the same rating because we just thought it was okay. We both didn't think it was probably one of her better works. This is actually my first book that I've read by Carrie Stewart Parks. This is Christian fiction, and I just found it very slow. In the beginning. It did pick up near the end, but there was a lot going on. There was natural disasters, there was murder happening, a lot of different things happened in this book. Probably a little too much for me. Just so I could actually take in more of the story and not be so confused. At least in the ending, there was a lot happening in the ending. But this is about Darby, and she is taking a vacation in Idaho, and when she gets there, there's an earthquake, the barn has a fire, there's something to do with the mines there, and yeah, so there's a ton of things happening in this book, and I just found like if she put the action throughout the entire book rather than kind of pushing all the action to the end of the book, I think it probably would have been a little bit better for me. So this was only 3 stars. It was okay, but I think I'm gonna like her other books better. So I have one other one to read this month, and I'm excited to get to that one. The next 3-star read that I had was Code of Silence by Tim Schumacher. This is the first in a Christian middle grade series. I only gave it 3 stars because it was a little bit slow for me, and it was like almost one of those types of stories where they follow the character literally 24 hours a day every day, and I just don't think those are my types of books where like yeah, I get it, he went to school and he came home, but I don't need to see every single detail. So that's kind of why I gave it a 3-star rating instead of a little bit higher, but I did like the premise of the story a lot. So it's about these 3 teenagers who they always go to this cafe after school. Well, they stay until closing time one night, and something happens where these bad guys in masks come in and rob the place, and they are witness to it, and they end up beating up the owner, and the 2 kids escape, but the one gets seen, and so the one robber ends up threatening him, and so he tells them, and they end up taking a code of silence where they're not going to tell anybody because they're afraid for their lives, they're afraid for their families' lives. So they take a code of silence not to tell anybody, and hopefully the cops will catch the robbers themselves. But a lot of things go wrong with that plan because now they have to start lying. And so they see the consequences of their lies, they see the consequences of not telling, or if they do tell, what will happen, because they also think that possibly cops may have been involved because some of the robbers were wearing cop pants. So that's another reason why they can't tell the police, because they're not sure if they can trust them. So it's all about pretty much every single day until the end of the book and how it wraps up. I did really like how it wrapped up. I like the ending a lot. So I did enjoy it. It's just that like little part where I don't need to see every single detail of every single day. But I might try the second book. I might like it even better. Okay. So my last 3-star was The Prisoner by B.A. Paris. And I normally really enjoy her books, except for one that I've talked about before. This one I would have enjoyed a lot more if it didn't have as much language as it did. And her first couple books really didn't have hardly any language, except maybe one or two. But this one had quite a bit more stronger language in it. So I'm like, why couldn't you just stick with your like not strong language from your original few books? But yeah, the past one or two books of hers have gotten a stronger language in them. And so for that really just kind of turns me off of her books, and I might not continue reading them. I don't know, I'll see. But yeah, so this one only got 3 stars. This is about Emily, and she and another guy have been kidnapped, and she's put in a separate room than him. And she is in a completely dark room, kind of, yeah, it's still a timeline, where we see her kind of growing up and making friends as she was living on the streets, and making some friends that are a little bit more wealthy. She becomes a maid to them. And then we see her in the future being a prisoner in this house. And so we're trying to figure out what's going on. I did really like the premise of it and all of the steps that it took to kind of wrap it up in the end. But as I said, there was quite a bit of language, and it was a little bit slower than some of her books, but it was okay. It was okay. I still might try any new books that she comes out with, but if there's as much language as this one, then she probably won't be a favorite of mine anymore, unfortunately. All right, so on to my 4-star reads. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is the Book of the King by Jerry B. Jenkins. This is the first book in the Wormling series. I actually got the recommendation from Melanie Kilsby, so I will link her channel down below. Actually, it was her kid who recommended this book to me for a challenge, so thank you. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars, and I will be continuing the series. I really enjoyed this one. So this is about Owen Reader, and he's just an average, everyday kid. His father owns a bookstore. We all love stories that include a bookstore, right? So this is a Christian fiction middle grade series, and one day a kind of old, mysterious stranger comes to the bookstore, and he wants to sell a really old book. And Owen is the only one there. His dad's not there, and he says, well, I can't really buy it from you because my dad's not here. But he gives it to him to just read, and so he ends up starting to read it, and it's all about a prophecy that's supposed to happen where the sun is returning, and the wormling needs to kind of pave the way and help make that happen. Well, his father comes into the bookstore and immediately he's like, get that book out of my store. I don't want my son anywhere near it. But the old man tells him, I'll get that book to you when I can. So he ends up later on trying to find the old man and trying to find the book, and he does. And it's really great. I love the adventure story. There's a fantasy portal that takes you to another world. There's dragons. There's friendships happening, making quite a few enemies. But it's a really great, fun ride. I think anybody who enjoys middle grade books would really enjoy this series, because the first one was really good. I think I'm going to enjoy the rest of them. So the next 4-star book that I want to talk about is Prisoners of the Masquerade. This is the first book in the Prime Youth series by E.E. Cooley, and this is a indie published Christian book series, and the second book is going to come out, I believe, in the fall. Don't quote me, but I think so, because they offered me the second book to read and review, and I really enjoyed this. I was really surprised. I wasn't sure. The cover is not like my style, because it reminds me of like a graphic novel, but it is in book format, and it is just really good. It's a great action series. It is so much fun. I can't wait to read the second book in the series. So this is about Calvin. And Calvin and his friend, they start immediately right in the beginning. They're on a plane, and they got some scholarships to go to this school where they think they're going to earn college credits. Well, when they get there, they find that there is no parent, or not no parents. There's no adults around. It's all run by these teenagers. Calvin kind of starts to wonder, why is this school run by teenagers? Where are the adults? What's going on? And so we find out exactly what's happening and why they were kind of recruited into this school. It's very, very high paced, especially like after like the first half of the book. It's very high paced, lots of fun, lots of action going on. I feel like upper middle grade and YA lovers would really enjoy this book. I really enjoyed it. I like kind of how in the throughout the book you see him like asking God to help him try to figure out what's going on and to help his friends try to get out of there. So really good, and thank you to the author for sending me a signed copy. I thought that was really nice. And also a bookmark. This bookmark is really cool. Check that out. I really like that, and it has the names of all of the characters on there. So I really like that there's the character names on there. Really cool. Lots of help if you need to remember characters' names. All right, so yes, I really enjoyed this book. I think you will too, especially if you like really kind of high adventure stories. I think you'll really enjoy this series. So I will link his information down below in the description box for you all. So go check it out. While I Was Away by Waka T. Brown. I read this middle grade book. Actually, I listened to the audio, and I really enjoyed this book. So this is about Waka. I don't know if it's autobiographical or not because the main character's name is the same as the author's. I should have looked into that. But so this is about Waka, and she's Japanese, but she lives in America, and she has been going to school in America pretty much her whole life. She's only been to Japan like once or twice when she was younger, but her parents tell her she has to go to Japanese school, and she's like, but I went like years ago. And they're like, no, you went to kind of like a English speaking school in Japan. We want you to go to Japanese speaking school in Japan so you can learn more about verb tenses and just learn more of the language and stuff. Well, she's really upset about that. She doesn't want to go. She doesn't want to leave her friends, but she does go, and she ends up staying with her aunt at first, and she really, really loves her aunt and her cousins, and she just wants to stay with them. But she's supposed to go and live with her grandmother until the rest of these like school semester. I think she stays like 5 months, I think that sounds right. So she ends up staying with her grandmother, and her grandmother is one of those, I guess, I don't know if I would say typical, but she's definitely more very prim and proper, especially with the Japanese culture. So she doesn't show a lot of emotion. She doesn't hug, she doesn't kiss, and you really can't tell if she likes her granddaughter or not. But you see throughout the story these little sweet moments between granddaughter and grandmother, and it's just really sweet, and you get to see her getting more involved with the Japanese community and the school, and I just found it really, really not informational, but I probably learned stuff that I didn't know about Japanese culture, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I actually want to go to Japan someday. So it was kind of fun to read a book about that. And the next 4-star read that I had was the story Peddler by Lindsay A. Franklin. And this probably was closer to 4.5 stars because I really enjoyed it. And I can't wait to continue on with this series. This is a Christian fiction, I would say YA series. I think it's listed as middle grade though. Somewhere, I can't remember, but I think it's closer to YA because there is a little bit of romance, but it's clean romance, like, so it's really sweet, really fun fantasy book. So this is about Tanwin, and she creates stories out of light coming out of her hands, and so she is a story peddler where she tells stories with this older lady in the village. Well, one day she ends up shooting a white light out of her fingers, and it's telling people that the old king was murdered, and so now she is on the run from the most recent king's guards, and so she has to leave her town, leave her friend, and so she ends up escaping, and there's these couple of rogue pirates. Yes, they're pirates. But they end up finding her in her home when she's trying to escape back to her home. She doesn't know where to go yet, but they find her, and they tell her to trust them, and she ends up trusting them. So they end up taking her back to their kind of homemade village in the woods, like Robin Hood almost. But they are all kind of storytellers. They all have a little bit of different magic abilities, but it's really good. They're all on the run from the king, and it's really good. I really enjoyed this one, and I'm really excited to continue this series. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, so it's good. Check it out. That's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that one. The Spy Family series. So I don't have volume 1, 2, or 3 because I read those on ebook from my library, but I do have volumes 4, that way, 4, 5, and 6. So I read 1 through 6 this month. I know. I pretty much binge read these. I was even going to read number 7, but number 8 doesn't come out until later on this month. So I was like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to take a little break and not binge read. I also thought I could use it for a challenge, but not really. So, oh well. But yeah, so I read these. I probably should put the first one first. But this is a fun series. I really enjoy it. The only problems that I really have with this series is there is a few language words in it, and not terrible. There's just a few throughout. And there is quite a bit of violence, but you're probably going to expect that because it is about a spy family and on their missions and stuff. So we're following this spy who's on a mission, and in order to complete that mission, he has to infiltrate a private school. But in order to do that, he needs to create a family. So he has to adopt a kid, find a wife, and hurry up and get that done. So he ends up meeting his wife, and she works at an office job, but in secret, she is a secret assassin. And then he adopts his kid, and nobody knows, but she is a telepath, so she can read their minds, and she knows that both of them is a spy and an assassin. So I think she was my favorite character, the daughter. I just thought she was so funny. The looks on her faces, like, it's just so cute. Like, the looks on her faces are so funny. But we see their adventures and her going to school and trying to become friends with the kid whose father they need to infiltrate and get information from. And so, you know, the kid, like, doesn't really like her, but he's got, like, mixed thoughts in his head, so she's not sure what to think about him. But it's so cute, and honestly, those are my favorite parts with, her name's Anya, and just the artwork is really cute in this series. This is my first manga series that I've ever read, and yeah, as you can tell, I've read almost the entire series already, and they come out in Japan first, and then America, so I have to wait a little bit longer. So the 8th book is coming out in September, and the 9th book is coming out, I think, next spring. So it's going to be a while. I don't know how many books are going to be in this series, but look at that dog. He does look like a seal. They mention in, like, one of the back informational things that he does look like a seal. He does look like a white seal, and he's so cute. Oh yeah, and he's also got some abilities too, this dog. So yeah, I really enjoyed that series. Almost every YouTuber is reading that series. It's crazy. I've seen like a good like 6 to 8 YouTubers reading this exact same series. I think it's hilarious. I'm actually on like a hyped up series at the time that it's hyped up. I'm usually way late to the bandwagon. Okay. All right, on to 5-star reads. It's over here. I keep putting my owned books over here and library books over here. Just easier. All right, first 5-star book that I want to talk about is Beneath the Bending Skies by Jane Kirkpatrick. This is a Christian historical fiction. This is an ARC copy. It comes out the 6th, so it comes out next week. And I really enjoyed this one. I think it's closer to 4.5 stars, but I think it was good enough to give it 5 stars, so I did. But this is about Molly, and her father is quite possessive. It is based on a true story, which I think is really cool. But he goes off and pretty much leaves her by herself all the time as he's traveling for a job. And he comes back and takes her to supposedly a forever home. And she finds a new wife and a new baby sister. So he must have been gone for a long time in order to do that. But yeah, so they have that family, and she ends up meeting her father's friend Peter. He's a fairly younger guy. He's in his 20s, but she ends up falling in love with him. But her father forbids it, even though Peter is a pretty upstanding guy. He hasn't done anything wrong with her. He's been very honorable and sweet to her, but her father forbids it. And so they end up being separated, I think for a really long time, between 5 to 10 years. But we find out that he is still in love with her, and so she ends up finally getting together with him and marrying him, and they end up moving to an Indian reservation where he is kind of like the marshal of the area, and he kind of solves the issues between the Indians and the army. It is definitely more slower paced, but I did still really enjoy it. I did a whole review on it. I will link it down below in the description box if you want to check it out. The next 5-star book that I read was Words on Fire by Jennifer A. Nielsen. This is my second book by the author, and she is already becoming a favorite of mine. I love her book so much. Her historical fiction is so good. It's a middle grade book, and I love that she brings to light a lot of historical time periods or events that most of us don't really know much about. So this one takes place in Lithuania, and the Russians are trying to take over Lithuania and trying to make all Lithuanians Russian. They're taking away their culture. They're taking away all their Lithuanian language books and bringing in Russian books. Well, her family was involved with the kind of almost like a book. I don't know what the right word is. Like, not a book swap, but they take books. Well, it's kind of like a Robin Hood story. They take books and give to the poor. But they give books to Lithuanians who really want to keep their culture and really want to read. And so right in the beginning of the story, her family is found by the soldiers and are taken. And she ends up escaping, and her mom tells her to go see this woman in a village pretty far away. So she goes in order to deliver a package that her mom gave her. And so she ends up going, and she ends up staying with her, and she ends up meeting this boy along the way who she doesn't realize is also working to give books to the Lithuanian people. And it's just really good. There's quite a bit of action in this book. Some parts are really sad, but I really enjoy her books. I will definitely be picking up more. Second to last book, I have A Place to Hang the Moon by Kate Albus, and I loved this book. I read it while camping last month, and it was just such a cute story. I love this book so much. It's probably going to be in my top 10 of the year. I really enjoyed it. So this is a middle grade book about these 3 siblings who their grandmother passes away, and she pretty much leaves them destitute. She doesn't give them any options. Like, she doesn't take care of them in her will. They are wealthy. They do have her money, but they have no family. They have nobody to take care of them. So the solicitor of their grandmother's estate tells them they need to escape London before the Germans take over London, and go to the countryside. And while you're there, hey, why not try to find a new family? So they have to go here to try to find a new family in the countryside, but don't tell them that you're wealthy, because obviously, for obvious reasons, you don't want a family who's only in it for your money. So they end up going, and you see a lot of really sad situations and horrible families that get involved with these children. And it's just a really sweet book. I really enjoyed it. I love that they find comfort in books and the library. It's a really sweet middle grade. I really enjoy this one. This has been on my TBR for like a good year or two, so I'm glad I finally picked it up. All right, the final book, my favorite of the month, and probably one of my favorites of the year, is Dangerous Beauty by Melissa Koslin. And I've done a whole review on this, so I will link also this video down below if you want to check it out. But I love this book so much. I love it so much. It's so good. So yeah, this book is definitely in my top favorites. This is about Liliana, and she has just escaped from human trafficking from Mexico into the US. And she finds herself at a gas station where she meets a man, Merrick. Yeah, Merrick. He's got an interesting name, so I try to remember his name. But she meets Merrick, and he sees that something's going on. So he ends up capturing the bad guys, calling the police, and they're trying to figure out what to do with her. Like, they can't bring her back to Mexico because the human traffickers could find her. She can't stay in the US because she doesn't have a green card. So he says, well, the only option I can think of is marrying you in name only. So she agrees and they get married, and he does speak Spanish and English. So she ends up staying at his house in a separate bedroom, and she ends up really trying hard to learn English as well so she can communicate with the people where he lives. And there's lots of mysterious things happening. He's a big, very wealthy man, but he's also got a reputation of being a hard boss that fires a lot of people, but he's also got some underground ties that are kind of suspicious. There's strangers coming into the apartment. It's very, very good. It's very intense. I really enjoyed it. Lots of action. This would make a really great action movie. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, so this is Christian fiction, which I forgot to mention, but it's really good, really fun. I loved it. I love the romance in it. I love the suspense. It's just a good time. I absolutely love this one. So that's all the books that I have for you today. Gotta put that up there. Yeah, so those are all the books. I'll hold up a few that I have over here. Oops. Dropped my paper. But yeah, so it was a great reading month. Mostly anyways. There were some duds, but most were good. Alright, so here's some of them, as well as my ones that I own, which are over there for now. But so here's some of them. Why is Spy Family? Oh, okay, I thought it was upside down. But yeah, so these are some of the books that I've read and definitely had an interesting month. I was all over the board with ratings. So yeah, so I might not read as much next month. I keep saying that, but is it going to happen? Probably not. I'm probably going to read a ton. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe down below. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video.